The one basic functions of accounting information system is to provide information users with useful information so they can make decisions. There are 5 fundamental principles that contribute to the overall objective of system reliability. Okay? They are security, confidentiality, privacy, processing integrity, and availability. And we call this the trust service framework. Okay? This is a means to organize IT controls to help ensure system reliability. And within this framework, the security is a foundation for the whole framework. So what is security? Security is access to the system and data is controlled and restricted to legitimate users. Okay, this is a topic in chapter 11. Confidentiality and privacy are topics for chapter 12, and the rest are topics for chapter 13. All right. So as a foundation of the framework, there are 3 fundamental information security concepts. First, security is a management issue, not just a technology issue. So effective information security requires the support of management and involvement throughout all phases of the security life cycle. So, security life cycle. The security life cycle has 4 steps. Okay, first, management must assess the threat to an accounting information system and determines how to respond. Right, we talked about that in the previous lecture. Reduce, accept, share, or avoid. Then in the second step, it is going to develop security policies and make sure that those policies are communicated. Then the third step is to invest in the necessary resources, like human resources and technologies, to reduce the security threats. And the fourth step requires monitoring of performance. Okay, so this is so-called security life cycle. All right. Then the second concept is people. People is the most critical factor. So training is critical prevention controls, as employees must understand and follow the organization's security policies. So all the employees should be taught, right, why security measures are important, and they should be taught with some of these good security measures. For example, right, never open unsolicited email attachment or something like that. Then the third fundamental information security concept is the time-based model of information security. Okay, let's talk about that. Basically, the time-based model of information security is using the formula to evaluate if security procedures are effective. All right? So the formula is P must be greater than D plus C. Okay? And a P is the time it takes to attacker to break through preventive controls. So when the system is well protected, okay, it takes longer for the attacker to break into. And D is the time it takes to detect an attack. And C is the time it takes to respond to attack and make corrective action. Okay, so if P is greater than D plus C, meaning the attacker is going to fail, right? Attacker is the action will be corrected, okay, before the attacker breaks into the system. So the goal is to employ combination preventive, detective, and corrective controls to protect information assets long enough, okay? And multiple layer of controls. Example, preventive plus detective, okay, can better avoid a single point of failure. Overlapping controls, complementary controls, or even redundant controls, okay, can give us a better protection, basically. All right, so let's talk about preventive controls. So preventive controls have the following pieces of security measures. They have physical security, the process, and IT solutions. So first, physical securities. We must have access control. So controlling physical access to the system is absolutely essential. Right? Just like we need a door to the home, we need access control to the system. So a typical access control used is called a man traps. Basically, we need 2 doors, okay? Need to pass 2 doors to get an access to the system. So to get through 2 doors, right? Each user need to have multiple authentication ways to get through 2 doors. 2 doors should be passed differently. So if the users is not legitimate, the user will be trapped between the 2 doors, okay, or caught. This is so-called man traps. All right, so let's talk about the process, user access controls. Okay, and authentication. Authentication focuses on verifying the identity of the person or device attempting to access the system. Okay, so it applies to both the person and the device. First, how to verify the person. So users can be authenticated by verifying something they know. For example, date of birth or some PIN numbers, or something the person has, or ID badges, or some biometric characteristics like fingerprints or voice, right? Or a combination of all these, which we call multi-factor authentication. Like one needs to use both debit card, right, which is something it has, and a PIN number, which is something a person knows, to withdraw cash, or multimodal authentication, right? Present credit card and driver licenses together to a salesperson, right? This means the same type of document or same type of verification, but we need more, basically. Another process is authorization. Authorization restricts access of authenticated users to specific portions of the system and specify what actions they are permitted to perform. So once a person is permitted to get an access to the system, they need an authorization to use different part of the system. Okay, so we need an access control matrix to handle this part of the control. So access control matrix is a table specifying which portion of the system users are permitted to access and what actions they can perform. Right, for example, you have 5 employees who are permitted to access various files and perform related operations. Okay, so these are the employees we have, and they can perform different duties within the system. For example, Able is going to check customer account balances, check inventory availabilities. Okay. So for the following operations, how do we design an access control? 0 means no access, 1 means read only, 2 means read and modify, and 3 is a full control, read, modify, create, and delete. And based on their roles and duties, okay, we can make the following access control matrix. For example, let's talk about Denise. Denise is allowed to add new customers, to delete customers, okay, add and remove inventory items. So Denise's duties is restricted to basically 2 databases, right? Customer master files and inventory master files. Denise cannot get an access to payroll and also system log. So with the customer file and inventory file, Denise can add new customer, delete customers, add removal inventory items, so Denise will have the full control of those 2 files. So we're going to give them 3, read, modify, create, delete for Denise, right? But Denise has no access to the other two database, basically. All right. IT solutions. Okay, IT solutions, we're going to talk about the following controls. We have anti-malware controls, network access controls, device and software, hardening controls, and encryption. Okay, anti-malware controls. We talked about similar topics in the previous lecture, so you can read the textbook. So let's talk about network access control. So the network access control defines how data is transmitted over network. The 2 important protocols, referred to as TCP and IP protocols, governs the process for transmitting information over the internet. The TCP is Transmission Control Protocol. Specify the procedures for dividing files and documents into packets to be sent over the internet and the methods for reassembly of the original document or file to the destination. And this because on the internet we cannot send big files. Big files will be break into small packets. Okay, and then when all the packets arrived, they're going to be put them together into the original file, and this is done by the TCP protocol. The other is Internet protocols. IP protocols specify the structure of those packets and how to route them to the proper destination. So basically, IP protocol is going to give guidance how those packets travel, okay, to the destination. And every device needs a network interface card to connect to a network. And each network interface card has a unique identifier called Media Access Control, or MAC address. Okay, MAC identifies a device to another device on the same local network. And each device connected to the internet is assigned with an internet protocol address or IP address. Okay, IP identified the device globally. So to identify a device, we need both IP address and the MAC address to identify the specific device, right? The IP is going to get through to for example, the company, which is all the companies using the same IP address, and within the company we need a MAC address to find the device. Alright, a large file is divided into thousands of small packets when being transmitted, and each packet is labeled with an Ethernet header, which contains the MAC information, the IP header, which contains the IP information, and the TCP header. Okay, so you can watch this video to see how TCP/IP works for the network. The router, which is a hardware, routers read the source and destination address fields in IP headers to decide where to send the packet. Okay, so all the packets are travel through the internet through many routers, and every time they're going to be determining, the router is going to determine where to send, okay, based on the IP information in the IP header. And once they arrive to the IP address, the Ethernet headers is going to read the final destination, right? The MAC information, to direct the packet to the local area network within the LAN. Then packets are reassembled into file with information contained in the TCP headers. So here we have a picture of organizational network architecture. Okay, let's briefly go point it out how they work together. So we have the internet. Okay, this is a company network. The company networks connect to the internet through a broader router. Okay, this broader router. Broader router connects organization's information system to the internet. Okay, so behind the broader router we have the main firewall. Okay, main firewall could be hardware, could be software, or usually it's together. Okay, the firewall is a combination of security algorithms and router communications protocols that can prevent outsiders from tapping into corporate database and email systems. It's just like a gate, okay? And the organization's web servers and email servers are placed in separate networks right here. Okay, we call it demilitarized zone because it sits outside corporate network. Okay, this is a corporate network. This sits outside corporate network because the security control, access control is different. So many times we're going to see the companies web page is hacked, we're talking about this. It's kind of difficult to hack this network. Okay, security level is different. All right, talking about companies' internal network. Okay, that we have additional internal routers behind the main firewalls. Okay, and then we have firewalls for each department. We have firewall for payroll department, firewall for accounting department, for each department. And behind the firewall, it's the department server and devices. Okay, so this is a basic architecture, organization network. All right, we talked about that already. So where is access control? Access control is through the firewall, basically. We have the packet filtering. And also the router is going to also have these filtering functions. All right, so we have basically we have some rules. We call it access control list. Okay, ACL is a rule that determines which packet are allowed entry and which are dropped. And the broader router screens individual IP packets, okay, based solely on the contents of the source or destination field in IP packet header. So basically, the router is going to screen the IP packets. Okay, if they found a bad IP address that are not welcome to the organization, they're gonna deny it. Okay, and now they only accept IP destination address, that is company's IP destination address will be allowed. Okay, so and also the main firewalls ACL further filters by checking fields in the IP and the TCP headers. Okay, so the main firewall is going to check again. There's also deep packet inspections. In the previous packet filterings only check the IP and TCP headers, okay, but it does not check the content. And then in deep packet inspection, the packet filtering is still limited to examine not only the information in the IP packet headers, but also check the actual data. Okay, actual data. So actual data packet will be put together. So the firewall's deep packet inspection is going to check the data itself. And the system is going to install the intrusion prevention systems, IPS. Basically, monitor the patterns in the traffic, okay, within the network, and are designed to identify the drop packets that are part of an attack. If the system observes the increased traffic from certain, IP address, then obviously that is an attack, and automatically those will be denied. And the use of multiple perimeter filtering devices is actually more efficient. Okay, and we call this defense in depth. Right, and also we need to secure wireless access, because almost all the devices now have the Wi-Fi, can receive Wi-Fi signals. So to secure wireless access, basically you should disable the company's devices from accessing the external Wi-Fi signals, and also reduce the company's Wi-Fi signals, restrict Wi-Fi signals, so the outsiders cannot or less likely to receive company's Wi-Fi signal. And each device connecting to the company's Wi-Fi signals need to have the proper network card, NIC card, with the correct MAC address. Hardening controls. Every program running on a host represents a potential point of attack because it's probably contain flaws, right, called vulnerabilities. And we know that if you install software, right, then people will use a hole in the software to attack your computer. So most often we're going to modify the default configuration of the software to eliminate unnecessary setting and eliminate unnecessary setting devices to harden our controls. And many times we're going to install patch, right? Install patch to harden software. Also, we're going to use user account management. Okay. And when we design software, we need to also control user input. Okay, what kind of input users may instruct the software. Right. Sometimes, if we do not have the user input controls, then the attackers may use this vulnerability. That's in a short time period, the attacker is going to input huge amount of data into the systems and crash the systems, then take control of the system. Okay, that's why we need control user input. All right, so all these are preventive controls. Let's talk about detective controls. A log analysis is a process of examining logs to identify evidence of possible attacks. Because everything, all the operations will be recorded in a log file in the system. So you can check that to see if there's any possible attacks. Okay, we also have the intrusion detection systems, IDS, the system that creates logs of all network traffic that was permitted to pass the firewalls and then analyzes those logs for signs of attempted or successful intrusions. Sometimes we use honey pots to detect attacks. Honeypots is a decoy system that is used to provide early warnings that are insiders or outsiders attempting to search for confidential information. So basically, it's a fake internal network, okay, to track possible attacks, and all the activity will be recorded. So this gives us a warning of attacks. Okay, and then we have the continuous monitoring of both employee compliance with organizations' information security policies and overall performance of business processes. All right, so all these are detective controls. How to respond to attacks. So once attacks happens, we need to correct it. The two controls we can employ to respond to attacks. The computer incident response team. Okay, this team includes both technical specialists and senior operation management. So together they're going to work together to handle attacks. And also for big corporations, we can also have this chief information security officer. And this is independent from the chief information officers. Okay. And the chief information security officers should report to either the CEO or the COO directly. All right, we have some tests right here. Now let's talk about the next two component of next two principle of the trust service framework: confidentiality and privacy. First, confidentiality and privacy. There are four basic actions we must be taken. Okay, So first, identify and classify information to protect. For example, where is it located, and who has access? And classify value of the information to organization. And second, encryption. We're going to protect information in transit and also information in storage. Okay, so all the information will be encrypted. However, there's no protection during processing information. Okay. Third, access controls. You must have information rights management software, which limits access to and actions on specific files. This is a very important preventive control. And the data loss prevention software, which controls outgoing information. Okay, again, it's a preventive control. And digital watermarks, okay, which is very effective to theft controls. So we're going to talk about these pretty soon. And the fourth component is training. Protecting privacy of sensitive information. This is very similar to the confidentiality principles. Okay, but there are some differences. Okay, the main difference, primary difference, is that for privacy protection, it focuses on protecting personal information rather than organizational data. Effective privacy controls include encryption, right, authentications, and authorization controls, and also data masking, also known as tokenization. Right, for example, important personal information like social security numbers will be masked, right? So it only can be so only a few people are authorized to view your social security numbers. Okay, we present your information to the other people. Your social security number will be masked. We call these data masking. Privacy concerns. Basically, we have spam and identity theft. Okay, it's just we have talked about similar stuff in the previous lecture. Privacy regulations. Let's talk about current privacy regulations. We have the European Union's GDPR, which is the General Data Privacy Regulations. Okay, it's one of the strictest privacy regulations, which became effective on 2018. So what are the important part of this GDPR? Now, organization needs to take a proactive approach to protecting privacies, or it can face penalties of up to 4% of global revenue. That's a lot of money. And the regulation applies to any company that stores any data about European residents. Okay, so basically it covers most companies. If you have European customer or vendors, right? Then there are a few debatable or significant rules. One is right to be forgotten. So basically, if you have, small criminal histories, or records, you can ask those companies to wipe this information from their database, right to be forgotten. And the revocation of consent to sell or share information. Right? When you use products or you log into website, sometimes you're going to agree, right, to share your information. And this regulation allows you to, right, revocate of that agreement. Okay, you said no. Okay, I changed my mind. Okay, so you can always change that according to this regulation. Okay, also we have other things that are important for privacy protection, so you can take a look from this link to see what is included in GDRP, European GDRP. It's a strictest one. And in the US, we do have similar regulations, which is the California Consumer Privacy Act, CCPA of 2018, basically very similar to the European GDRP, but applies to California residents. Okay, but since most US companies have California customers or vendors, so automatically they are regulated by this rule. And facial recognition now become a hot debate in both Europe and US, right? Especially right in last year, the last election, there's a lot of things going on, and the government is using facial recognition, technology to identify people. And also they can search the face from social network like Facebook. So it's very easy to identify people, I should say that. But it's debatable because according to these regulations, customers like Facebook customers, right? I have the right to revocate, right, my consent to share information. So basically, you cannot share my facial characteristics and other things to other people, unless they have special rules, like saying anti-terrorism, right? Reasons. Otherwise, you cannot share the information. So it's debatable. And here we have 10 internationally recognized best practices for privacy protections. Okay, and you can go through them. And we have a test here. The next topic is encryption. So encryption is important and final layer of preventive controls. Very useful when the data in transmission and in storage. Not that effective in data processing. Okay, so encryption is a process of transforming normal text, also known as plain text, into unreadable gibberish called a ciphertext. The reverse process is called decryption. Right, several factors involved in the encryption. That's key, algorithm, and the management policies. So let's briefly explain how encryption works. So basically, in in a digital world, all the information is recorded in binary data, right? In binary digits, it could be either 0 or 1. Then we put all the 1 and 0 together, that becomes something. So both the plain text and the ciphertext are in binary digits, 0 and 1. Okay, so we can convert the plain text to ciphertext based on what? Based on with a key. Okay, now we need a key. Key is a string of binary digits, right? Again, it's a 0, 1, a combination 0, 1. And the longer the key, basically the more the binary digits can be converted. For example, a 355-bit key contains a string of a 255-bit key contains a string of 255 0 and 1s, and that can convert 255 0 and 1s from the plain text to the ciphertext. Okay, and because of that, if we have a big file to convert, okay, we have to cut the plain text into pieces, right? Every piece is going to contain 255 bit. Okay, once we do that, and through encryption algorithm, certain rules, we're going to convert the plain text into ciphertext, something that is not readable. Okay, and the reverse is we're going to use a key again and to convert the unreadable stuff through a certain algorithms to readable plain text. Okay, that's the idea of encryption, decryption. So, right, the key length, longer the key length, right, the stronger the encryption, because it makes it difficult for people to figure out the key, right? And also the algorithm itself is important, right? Better designed algorithms make it difficult for other people to figure out how you convert, how you encrypt plain text to the ciphertext. And also management policies is important. So how do we securely store those keys in our computers is important. All right, let's talk about the two types of encryptions. One is a symmetric encryption, the other is asymmetric encryption. So the symmetric encryption uses one key to both encrypt and decrypt. The benefit is speed is fast. Okay, you can use it to encrypt a large amount of information. Because we are using only one key to do both. So if you want to share information with other people, both parties need to know the key. Then the question is, how do we send the key securely? How do we securely share the key with the other party is a concern, right? And also, for every people we want to share information, we need to use different keys, okay? Because I cannot use the same key to share information with different people. So I will use different keys these are the disadvantage. Okay, so this is a disadvantage for the asymmetric encryption, or for the symmetric encryption. Okay, symmetric encryption. Now let's talk about asymmetric encryption. In asymmetric encryption, we use two keys. What? Public keys. So everyone has access to public keys. Basically, I can just put my public key in my website. And I also have a private keys. Okay? A private key is used to decrypt, only known by me. And public keys can be used by all my trading partners. Alright, so in this case, the private key and public key now is a pair. It must be used together. Example, if I want to buy books online, okay, I need to send my credit card information through the internet. Right? There's a concern, right? So then I can use the public key, the bookstore's public key, to encrypt my credit card information. Okay, so I send that to the bookstore. Only the bookstore can decrypt this information with their private keys, because the public key and private key are a pair. Only their private key can decrypt that information. That way, I can feel safe when purchasing online with bookstore. This is how we use the asymmetric encryption system. So the asymmetric encryption solve these problems. Okay, so my public key can be distributed to anyone. Okay, so I don't have to worry about my public keys. And also just need one public keys. So everyone can use the same public keys to talk to me, but they cannot see each other's information sent to me, because only I can view those information with my private key. However, there's some disadvantage with asymmetric encryption. Basically, it's about speed. Okay, it's much slower. It's much slower than the symmetric encryption. And also another problem is, right, the ownership of public keys. So we know public keys are everywhere. How do I know, as a customer in the bookstore customer, how do I know I'm using the bookstore's true public key to send my credit card information, right? So what about this is a public key from a hacker's public key. So I'm sending my credit card information to the hacker, right? That's a concern. So we're going to talk about that. So these are the disadvantage of asymmetric encryption. Virtual private network. And virtual private network securely transmit encrypted data between sender and receiver. So when information is encrypted during transmission, virtually we create private communication channels, typically called tunnels, okay, which are accessible only to the two parties. And there are two types of VPNs. One type for the browser, okay, which encrypts the traffic when you surf the web. that is known as the SSL or TSL. Okay, if you take a look at your browser on the corner, there the up left corners, typically you're gonna see lock symbols, which means, right, all your information communicated will be encrypted. And the other is type of VPN is IPsec. IPsec is a version of IP protocols, but it incorporates encryption as part of the process of creating IP packets. Okay, so this is often used when you have a remote office. Okay, when you try to connect to your physical office computers or connect to your office database, right? We have to use this type of VPN. Hashing. Hashing is a process that takes plain text of any length and transforms it into a short code called a hash. And hashing is different from encryption, right? Any size input yields the same fixed size output for hashing. For example, the ACCT4320 algorithms creates a 256-bit hash for a one-sentence document. It creates the same length of hash for a 10-page document, or for 10 books, or even for all the books in the library. Will give us the same length of hash. Encryption is different, right? It gives us the same amount of binary digits. And hashing is a one-way function. It cannot be recovered once it's hashed. Encryption, we can decrypt it, right? So hashing is used in non-repudiation, which is creating legally binding agreements that cannot be unilaterally repudiated by either party. So nobody can change the documents, the contract. And hashing plays an important and integral role in blockchains. And also, this is how we get to the Bitcoin or the mining process, right? In long story short, basically, who's going to get Bitcoin? Bitcoin is rewarded for solving the hashing problem, because we know for each hash, the hashing is going to give us a fixed length, right? Data, fixed length of binary data, 0, 1, 0, 0, 1, 0, 1, something like that. But to see who has better computation capabilities, okay, the winner is going to win the Bitcoin, get rewarded a Bitcoin. Who's going to win? Basically, we're going to have preset of zeros, okay, in there as an answer key for hashing problems, and whoever is going to give the answer is going to get rewarded. Okay? So everyone is going to try their hashing, hoping to give the pre-given answer key. Right? If your outcome, your hashed outcome is the same as answer key, okay, you win and you get a Bitcoin. So to read more, please watch these videos. Okay, how Bitcoin mining digital signature. A digital signature is a combination of encryption and hashing. So a digital signature is information encrypted with the creator's private key. So a document creator uses a hashing algorithm to generate a hash of the original document. Okay? And a document creator uses a private key to encrypt the hash. So the creator is going to send the document, right? Original document, digital signature, and the hashing algorithm. Remember, the digital signature is a encrypted, right? Private key. So next, the receiver is going to use the sender's public key. Public key can be obtained everywhere. Use the sender's public key to decrypt the digital signature. Okay? A correction. A digital signature is encrypted hash. Encrypted hash. Okay? So the receiver is going to use the public key, which he can obtain everywhere, to decrypt the digital signature. So the receiver is going to get the hash. Okay? Then the receiver is going to use the provided algorithm to create another hash. If those two hashes are the same, then it can prove that document the receiver gets is created by the original author. Okay, let's think about it. Right, the other people can modify the document, but cannot modify the digital signature. Right? So if they modify the document without modifying the digital signature, then the receiver is going to get a different hash with the hashing algorithm. Then you may ask, how about other people modify the hashing algorithm to get the same hash the original author has? It's very, very difficult, okay? Not impossible, but very, very difficult. Nobody wants to try that. So the digital signature should be secure enough to prove that a document received is created by the original author. But there's another problem. A potential problem is, how does the receiver know that the public key belongs to the legitimate sender and not to a criminal who created the pair of public and private keys? And this is a big concern. Why? Because the other people can send a modified document, okay, a fake digital signature, which is encrypted, okay, not with the original sender's key, but with the criminal's key, right? And also the criminal can somehow send the public key to me. So when I use a public key to decipher the digital signature, I get the hash provided by the criminal and not by the sender. So this is a big concern. So here, the most important part of the digital signature is we need a verification of the public key. The public key must be from the original author. Okay? So we can make it very secure if we can verify the public key is from the original author. So we need a digital certificate. A digital certificate is electronic document created and digitally signed by the trusted third party that certifies that identity of the owner of a particular public key. Okay? So we call these system and process used called the public key infrastructure, PKI. And we have a bunch of those organizations that issues public and private keys and records public keys in a digital certificate. We call them certificate authorities. And if you notice, if we visit some website, we're going to get warning signals, a warning sign saying, okay, the digital certificate expires. This is because those organizations need to or require users to update, update information with them so they can get all their public key renewed. The browsers automatically check the validity of the website's digital certificate. If they expire, then they give the warning signs. Right, we have some question to answer. Let's talk about the other two trust service framework. They are processing integrity and availability. And processing integrity controls consist of input, processing, and output controls. Input controls should prevent inaccurate data from getting into the system.